Hi guys, Heather Rodriguez here, and we're going to talk about herbs and if you should stop using them after you've ovulated when you're trying to conceive. So there's a couple different avenues and answers to this. There are some supplements and herbs that should be discontinued after ovulation if you're actively trying to conceive. Now, there's actually fewer than you would think that this would apply to. So for one example, evening primrose oil is a supplement that we suggest to discontinue use after ovulation if you are actively trying to conceive. And the reason is that evening primrose oil can stimulate the uterus to contract. While I think this risk is extremely low, it is something that evening primrose oil is known to do. When someone is in labor or labor has stalled, a midwife might actually put evening primrose oil on the cervix to help the cervix to dilate and help to move labor along. So the way that we've been using evening primrose oil is to help to increase cervical mucus. So you would use it for a few days to help the cervical mucus to increase, and then you would discontinue use as soon as you've ovulated. Now, I do think that there are things built in within the body that are going to help protect the embryo and the fetus from external compounds, and we'll talk about that in a moment. So it's not something that I think people should be extremely stressed out about. But there are some other herbs to consider. So for instance, when someone is doing a fertility cleanse, we really strongly suggest that that month they do not actively try to conceive. In the fertility cleanse, there are herbs that are very cleansing and detoxifying that are going to help the body to get rid of and cleanse itself. But in order to do that, these compounds go back into the blood, and you don't really want to expose the embryo or the fetus or any situation to those elements. Also, they are very stimulating herbs, and they are not herbs that you'd want to use during pregnancy. So here's why when someone has become pregnant on fertility cleanse because they have continued trying to conceive regardless of our suggestion, why I don't think it's actually a huge concern. So for example, when you ovulate, your egg has to travel for a very long period of time through the fallopian tube down to the uterus. It takes days and days for this to occur because everything is so tiny and microscopic. Then that egg is going to meet the sperm along that journey at some point, and the cells are going to begin to divide. At this point, the embryo is now still floating within the body and has not implanted yet. Once the embryo is implanted, it is still not connected to your circulatory system or receiving any nutrients or any compounds from your body. Once it has implanted and it begins to build that system, there are some things in place within the body where your blood is not directly going into this fetus or into the embryo at that point and being used by that. There's a system within the body that is going to take the nutrients and everything like that and feed them to your baby, but it is not going to be directly mixed with your blood. That's why your child could have a different blood type or blood type to you, is because of this blood barrier that's occurring. So that's a built-in protective mechanism that is absolutely amazing that can help protect the baby in the early stages of development. Now, there are some things that obviously can pass through that blood barrier, such as alcohol. That's why there's alcohol fetal syndrome, other chemicals, some medications and compounds. So it's not completely safe proof, but that is one of the reasons that in early pregnancy, I don't get overly worried. It's just there are some things we don't suggest to do. So if you're using herbs that are not necessarily like fertility herbs or helping to support reproductive system, but they're more like cleansing herbs or they're very strong immune system herbs, maybe like oregano, things like that, those are the types of herbs I would not suggest to be used after ovulation. And then anything that's going to make the uterus contract. So another common question we get is about red raspberry leaf. Red raspberry leaf is an herb that's been used for centuries to help prepare the uterus, to help strengthen the uterus during pregnancy. And recently there has been some studies on it that it could be stimulating to the uterus. And this makes a lot of sense because it helps to tonify the uterine muscles. So we tell those who have experienced miscarriages before, recurrent miscarriages, to not start using red raspberry leaf until the second trimester. And that's kind of a good time for it to be used anyways to help to tonify and strengthen the uterus. There are other herbs that you can use in its place that are just very nourishing that you can use in early pregnancy that would be better. So those are just two examples. So it's not that you have to discontinue use of everything after ovulation. Just kind of think of what that herb does, really educate yourself on how the herb works. Is it stimulating? Is it nutritive? Is it a tonic? Tonic herbs, and most of the herbs we use are perfectly fine during that period of time because they actually tend to be very supportive or very gentle. So those are just some things to consider. If you have any questions about about an herb that you're using, feel free to go ahead and ask us. Something else to consider too is that when you're trying to conceive, a lot of the things that you want to do to help to support or overcome a fertility issue should actually be done for months ahead of time before you start trying to conceive. So for instance, if you're experiencing endometriosis or ovarian cysts or uterine fibroids, the herbs and the protocols that you're doing are going to take months for them to work. So 3 to 6 months, for instance, that you're going to be doing these. And some of these herbs are not ideal for pregnancy. So in order to get the full benefit of them, it would be great to focus in and do a program and a protocol without worrying about if you're pregnant or not or trying to conceive. I know that can be hard because you kind of see the days counting and the days going by, and there's this pressure that happens. But to get the full effect of these kits and of these protocols, they do need to be done for a period of time. So you don't want to be starting and stopping them after ovulation. So that's just something to consider when you're using herbs to help overcome something, because that's very different than herbs that you're using for hormonal balance or trying to get pregnant. So talk with your herbalist. If you're working with us, we're more than happy to help you figure this all out. But I just wanted to kind of cover that and why sometimes herbs are not recommended after ovulation. And the simple answer is if they stimulate the uterus, it's not ideal, or if they're very strong herbs, we don't want you using those when you could possibly be pregnant. All right, I hope you guys have a great day. Bye.